All right, this is your Business Morning. Let's continue. We had two big economic stories, data. So far this weekend, we're going to be swarming all over them between since yesterday till end of Friday. Of course, the GDP on one hand, early in the morning, and a bit of a late lunch yesterday with the foreign trade in goods, what you call the foreign trade report, to put it very simply. Okay, let's what's this for consumers? And again, a bit of a survey, how much your rice and beans and tomatoes costing as you begin to prepare. Kids are almost done with their examinations and they're getting ready to eat more than before, so you need to start stocking up. So wasn't this for you as you consider how to spend your November and January salaries? If you're getting a bonus, well, you also need to think how you spend this money, because the longest month in every year is January. Looks like a 60-day in a 30-day calendar. Let's talk a little bit more about Temitope Olugbile. He's from Financial Derivatives Company. She's live here in our studios at the headquarters. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go with what is burning. And I'm sure the GDP is burning and the trade balance data is also burning. So what's the take from your economic think tank at FDC on these two very important economic numbers?
Yes, so like you rightly said, two very important data reports were released yesterday by the MBS. The trade report was released late yesterday, and we saw that our trade balance declined sharply by about 71% to, if you convert it, to about $1.86 billion. And that was driven by a sharp increase in our import value. So our imports increased sharply by about roughly 73%. And even though our exports also increased marginally, it was not enough to offset the sharp increase in our imports. So that was a bit worrying, and it's a downer basically. And also the Q3 GDP report came in, and we saw that growth rate improved to about 1.81% in Q3, and that was a goodie.
Yeah. So if we put it on a table and it said, is it a glass full or glass or a cup empty? What do you guys think?
It would really depend on how you look at it.
And I'm looking at mine. I got some coffee in here, and I can tell you whether it is half empty or half filled. So what is this GDP numbers and trade balance? What did he say about the economy? Okay. Half full or half empty?
Okay, so some key points that would help you determine whether it's half full or half empty. So the trade report showed that crude exports still accounted for about 85% of total export value. Another worrying thing from the report was that our agri export value, the value of agri goods that were exported in Q3, was about 47% lower. So that is very worrying.
So we did poorly in agriculture.
Yes,
in third quarter.
Our exports of agriculture and the value we got from our
exports
of what we got from agri goods. So that is a bit worrying.
Maybe I'm going to blame my Papa Port and Le Gridlock for that. Maybe some of those agri products never made it to Tinkan or Roro, whatever it is.
When we have all these gridlock challenges.
Or maybe they spend more time at the ports and then it got bad by the time they get into the customers.
Exactly. We have all these storage challenges. So it's a bit worrying when you think about it and how we can be getting so much more from our agri goods, and we have so much commodities that we have a comparative advantage in that we are not tapping into.
So what else is making headlines because of time? I'm sure folks are still worried about the petrol products, folks at the depot, the tanker drivers and the rest of them, the haulage guys, and they said they gave government a breather of 5 days. We don't know what happens after 5 days. 5 days don't take folks to Christmas yet.
Exactly. So the latest is that the oil marketers have given the federal government a 5-day grace period, basically to pay up the subsidy backlog.
800
billion naira. Yes, but the government over the weekend said that they will pay the first tranche, about 200 billion naira, by Friday. So
Friday of this week?
Yes, that's
okay. I'm going to check the banks and see when the money hits the system.
We hope that would happen, because if the 5 days grace period expires
by Friday. Oh yeah, actually. Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, so the 5 days actually expiring on Friday. Yes.
Yes.
Because they said they were going on strike on Monday.
On Monday, yes.
And that announcement came. Then overnight they said, look, so we got a 5-day breather.
Period,
so it's actually going to expire on Friday if they don't get the alert.
Maybe, or over the weekend. Maybe they will push it a little to over the weekend again. But if what is important is if the government is not able to pay at least the first tranche by Friday or by the time the grace period is over, that would send panic buying, which we already saw happening yesterday, a little bit of it, that would just, spiral into fuel queues.
Yeah, I was just thinking of getting a second jerry can, really. I haven't bought anything into it, but I'm thinking of buying just a jerry can, an empty one.
Panic
buying. Keep it under the staircase, just in case.
Panic buying.
But don't put anything under the staircase. I'm just kidding. Okay, so what else are we doing? We have the 41 items. Now, okay, this is it. Godwin Emefiele is upset and is looking like he's fire and fury with the circular that came out yesterday.
Yes.
He's going with the EFCC and knocking on the doors of companies and of course going to knock on the doors of some banks. So folks, if you hear that maybe your bank is one of those found to have been misbehaving on the 41 items and they are penalized by the central bank, this is a warning already. I don't think it has anything it's not personal.
So they were...
Yeah, because that's what the circular says, that any banks found to be complicit. Yeah, that's it.
Non-compliance.
Yes, I'm just going to read that out. It said banks that provided their platforms for such economic abuses would also be appropriately sanctioned. End of quote. Go ahead.
Yes, so there were two parts to the circular that was released yesterday. There was the part that Godwin Emefiele was concerned about the compliance level of the 41 items and how, people are not really compliant and how he's clamping down on the non-compliance and wants to increase that. And then the second part was about adding one more item to the 41 items. So he added fertilizers to that. Yes, it's now, so now we are 42 items banned from accessing forex at the official market. So yes, we've seen the benefit of these 41 items. I mean, over the years, we've seen more companies do a backward integration and source for these things locally. And so we can't deny what it has done for maybe employment and just sourcing products locally and boosting and that could also help us in our agri.
No, I'm not much in the social circuit. I spend more time on stock market and things like that. But in the social circuit, I see folks are asking more of Nigerian rice than other rice if you go to social events. So that looks like the taste maybe it's looking like coming back. Except that I still find it, even among our staffers here, they like a bit more basmati rice. I just don't get it. I prefer the Ofada rice, which is just here in Ogun State, or the one from Ekiti State called the Gbemo rice. Basmati sounds like one named from Indonesia or Malaysia, somewhere like that. I haven't checked.
Yeah. So basically it's...
Okay. So what do you eat? What do you prefer?
So basically, yes,
you're not among the guilty basmati rice consumers.
I'm not going to state that.
You're not going to state that. Okay, no public disclosure on that. Okay, great. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about something very quickly. Let's go to the market and see. Where are we as far as the market survey is concerned? And I'm in love with this when you folks try to give me a sense of where prices are going. Well, let's check in with that for about a minute. Where are we as far as market prices concerned? I saw some red and some green.
Yes. So from our last survey, we saw that some commodity prices increased, which is only typical of December season. So we saw that rice is now about 16,000. We saw that beans is also up marginally to about 26,500. So yeah, those kind of commodities. And also on the other side, we have cement too has also increased to about 2,600 naira, and that could be on the back of the dry season now. So there might be increased construction activities ahead of the elections in February. So yeah, those are...
Okay, on a final note, what is it about okra? I noticed that folks are eating more of okra, which they say is it's a bit of what do you call it, okra seafood, something like that.
Yeah, seafood okra. Yeah.
My mother, many of us, our mothers never knew how to make those things. But it looks like you guys in this century seem to have a way around putting local vegetable like this and mixing it with other things. Tastes very good. I've had it about twice. I'm always going to disclose here.
Yes. So
you've had it too?
Yes, I have.
Very nice.
Yes.
So okra is a major local ingredient in this, which comes the farm.
Yes. So the thing that's interesting about okra is Nigeria has restricted itself to only the subsistence consumption of that commodity. So we only have like households farming, very harvesting it at the back of their houses and just consuming it locally. But okra has so many other uses. So we have that sometimes some countries use the roasted seeds, and when they grind it, it can be used as a substitute for coffee. And we also have it can be used to relieve
Excuse me,
pain.
you can say that again.
Yes.
As a substitute for coffee?
Yes, in some countries it is known to happen, yes. So those kind of uses are the kind of things that Nigeria must explore and start to see okra as an export potential, because we're the second largest producer of this commodity. So we should be able to do more than accounting for 22% of global output.
The world is always changing. I never thought, because if you get okra dried and you grind it, I'm sure it goes for a variety of what you call draw soup in a local, and I'm promoting Nigeria here, whatever. If you don't know what that means, go online, check what you call draw soup, a bit of that.
Yes,
but to say that it can substitute for my coffee is going to be a game changer. Thanks for giving me that. Let me check it out later, where I can get an okra-based coffee. Okay, what's the big story? This morning, we're trying to clarify a few of the stories in the news for everyone. The new microfinance bank, which the central bank governor talked about last weekend at the end of the Bankers Committee retreat, was not to be set up by the government, but it's the Bankers Committee that says they want to set up this bank, and they will be using their own money, which is domiciled at the central bank, the Agri and SMEs Fund. They got about 60 billion naira in that portfolio. So they're taking 5 billion naira out, and they're going in bed with NIPOST to use those offices of NIPOST, post offices across the country. About 744 local governments is going to be massive. That's a national microfinance bank. The majority shareholders are the banks themselves and not the central bank, but of course, as the one in charge of the financial system, the central bank will hold a very small equity stake alongside the NIPOS. Of course, if you're using my facilities, I'm going to have a stake in that business. But of course, you can walk in through this. All this will be unveiled in fuller details early next year. We clarified that for our viewers here and around the world. The 5 billion naira is not a taxpayer's money, as has been said on social media. This is going to be all private sector. The banks have the money, and they're the ones who are going to get this license from the Central Bank of Nigeria to run a microfinance bank of their own, jointly owned, and pushing their own intervention into agri and SMEs through the new MFB. We're taking a break.